From Ash Williams hanging up his chainsaw to four friends shooting a music video in the desert, is Evil Dead Rise the horror movie of the year? Sam Raimi created an instant cult classic back in 1981 when horror movie fans were treated to the first Evil Dead film. And the love for the series has exploded since then, creating a rabid fan base that can't get enough. We've now lived through 5 films and a featured television series on the Starz network, Ash vs. Evil Dead, that first aired in 2015 and was a huge success, earning a 98% rating from Rotten Tomatoes and running for 3 seasons, totaling 30 episodes. As happy and exciting as fans were to see Sam Raimi's world come back to life, the end of the series brought sadness on multiple levels. Not only was the series over, but the driving on-screen force announced he would be retiring from his role. Bruce Campbell, who played the unforgettable role of Ash Williams since the birth of the franchise, was hanging up his chainsaw. Though he told fans he would continue to voice Ash's character in the Ash vs. Evil Dead animated remake. It was a small consolation knowing that he'd no longer be tortured by Deadites or read from the Book of the Dead. But the show goes on, and writer-director Lee Cronin has added another chapter to the Evil Dead story in 2023. Reviews are creeping in, and fans and critics agree. Evil Dead Rise is a hit, earning an 84% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and Lee Cronin is being praised for being faithful to the franchise. The charm of the Evil Dead series has been wrapped in the diabolical mindset of the writers, and Cronin picks up where Sam Raimi left off, continuing the blood-soaked fun in a way that feels fresh and new, but also keeping it familiar enough for the fanbase to feel like they're at home. Even if Ash Williams isn't there to call things groovy and escalate situations into hilarity, it wouldn't be an Evil Dead film without thousands of gallons of blood and scenes with over-the-top bodily harm. And Evil Dead Rise checks both of those boxes. Oh, and a chainsaw and shotgun, because Ash Williams or not, those are must-haves in an Evil Dead film. We're treated to eye and hand injuries, broken bones, skull fractures, beheading, dismemberment, stab wounds, shotgun blasts, enough blood to soak the lead characters for a significant portion of the movie, and vomit, bugs, and broken glass to round out the menu at this carnival of horrors. Not everything will be familiar to fans, though. Instead of being set in the usual cabin-in-the-woods environment, the film will shift the focus to downtown Los Angeles. Sounds weird, I know, but from the moment Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland, is possessed by a Deadite, you're sucked in. A possessed Ellie psychologically and physically tortures her children, Cassie, played by Nell Fisher, Danny, played by Morgan Davies, and Bridget, played by Gabrielle Eccles, and the disturbing violence and gore that the franchise is known for take center stage, allowing the hardcore fans to get comfortable and embrace the sickness they tuned in for. It's not like the change in setting has no effect on the film. It does change the pacing somewhat, and makes the first act an unpacking of the details before getting into the bloody meat and potatoes parts, but it happens quickly, and once it does, the blood-soaked hysteria doesn't end until the credits roll, leaving you to process one of the most intense horror movies in years, and maybe jump in the shower to freshen up. It was the idea of keeping things fresh that sold Raimi on Cronin's involvement with the franchise, and the whole idea of him being involved came as a surprise to Raimi when the discussion came up. At the 2019 Sundance Film Festival, Sam invited Lee to lunch after the debut of his film, The Hole in the Ground. Raimi was impressed, but never thought to mention The Evil Dead. It was Cronin who brought it up at the end of the conversation by asking, "By the way, what are you doing with Evil Dead?" Raimi asked why he wanted to know, and Cronin told him that he was a massive fan, and that he would like to see more Evil Dead movies. To which Sam responded, "Oh, you like Evil Dead?" And you know the rest. The chainsaw was gassed up, the shotgun was loaded, and the Necronomicon was opened once again. Evil Dead Rise is being talked about as being maybe the best horror film of 2023. But how does it stack up against the rest of the films in the storied franchise? Does it rank as the best Evil Dead film? The original 1981 Cabin in the Woods romp set a high bar, and many fans and critics think of it as the best of the bunch, mainly because it was a fresh take on the teenage horror comedy genre. But the off-screen struggles during production have also grown the legend of the indie film. Sam Raimi was only 20 years old when he and his childhood friend, series star Bruce Campbell, set up in the Tennessee woods to shoot the low-budget movie. And to stay warm, they burnt the furniture in their cabin. Yes, that cabin, the now famous cabin where the Necronomicon and the forces of evil were unleashed, giving the audience a view from the perspective of the evil itself. It was new and very gutsy to try and pull off for such an inexperienced filmmaker and crew. But they did it, and it currently holds an 85% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, the second highest of the franchise, and allowed Raimi to work with a bigger budget for the sequel, Evil Dead 2, the highest-rated film of the series so far, earning an 88% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.7 out of 10 on Internet Movie Database, or IMDb. The second film sticks to the same formula as the original, following Ash Williams on his trip to the cabin in the woods, where he finds a tape recording that literally summons demons from hell and takes the audience down a blood-drenched path of depravity mixed with hilarity, all in the name of sending the devil back to the depths from which it came. It was a case of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Raimi left well enough alone, creating what is seen by many as the pinnacle of the series. Playing it safe by sticking to the proven, successful formula must have bored Raimi, because for Evil Dead 3: Army of Darkness, all bets were off, and Ash and his trusty boomstick were transported to the Middle Ages for a medieval romp with evil. Yes, it was decided that Ash would become a time traveler, sent to the Middle Ages to track down the Book of the Dead, so he could return to the present. A bit of a detour from a cabin basement, but there were many laughs to be had without taking the franchise too far off the rails, and provided all the bloody deaths necessary to satisfy most fans. It did go off the rails enough to earn the lowest rating of the series, though, with a 69% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and likely contributed to the disappointment of the next film, 2013's Evil Dead. But it certainly wasn't the only reason. It was the first film that didn't feature Bruce Campbell's Ash Williams, and that was clearly a big hurdle for fans to overcome, and the reimagining of the original film fell flat on its face, earning the same 69% rating that Army of Darkness was left with, but without the charm. Luckily, along came Lee Cronin, and even without Bruce Campbell, the franchise has been restored to its glory. Rise has earned an 84% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and has shed the extreme slapstick elements that fans didn't love about Army of Darkness, while adding even more darkness and depravity to the series. Sex may sell, but so do buckets and buckets of blood. And the true standing of Rise in the franchise won't be known until all the fans give it a look, but where it rates on the list of best horror movies of the year will be known much sooner. And there is some early competition, including Akela Cooper's witty horror comedy, Megan, a film about an artificially intelligent companion toy and how far she'll go to protect her favorite little girl. Kyle Edward Ball's low-budget creepfest, Skinamarink, a story of two children trapped alone in a house with a mysterious entity, and, surprisingly, a found-footage film from writer-director Robbie Banfitch, The Outwaters, that tells the story of four friends who head into the desert to shoot a music video, only to find something horrifying on the way. So, from four friends shooting a music video in the desert to Ash Williams hanging up his chainsaw, is Evil Dead Rise the horror movie of the year?